I talk a lot about mindset and self-awareness on this channel. And there's one mindset in particular that has drastically changed my life or had a massive impact on my life. It's probably the most empowering mindset I've ever adopted. And I'm confident it'll have the same impact in your life if you haven't taken on this mindset. And the mindset is life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. Everything that happens in life is there to help us evolve in some way, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is. And in taking on this mindset in my own life, a few things have happened. I found that rejection becomes redirection, loss becomes growth, lessons learned, and hardship usually turns into some sort of self-awareness. Because in looking at life in this way, and it's usually, hardships that we're referring to when it comes to this kind of stuff, because it's easy to have a comfortable time, an easy time when things are good. But when things are not so good, when you're going through a breakup, when you lose your job, when you lose a loved one, when there's some sort of inconvenience that happens, it's easy to be the victim in life. It's easy to look at yourself as, oh man, life is happening to me. And this sucks and it's unfair. And it doesn't mean that life is fair necessarily when you take on this mindset. It's more so looking at it in the lens that, okay, how is this working out for me? How is this happening for me? Doesn't mean that it's pleasant. Doesn't mean that you're happy necessarily during the hardship. It just means that you're able to really immerse yourself in that experience and look within. Evaluate yourself in some way. Evaluate, not in the sense that, oh, this is entirely my fault or anything like that. I think accountability is important. But in having this outlook, you do take full responsibility for whatever it is happening in your life. Whatever is triggering you, upsetting you, whatever loss you're experiencing. And in taking responsibility, again, it doesn't mean that you blame yourself for it necessarily. It just means that you're not a victim to those circumstances. It means you can use this hardship as a stepping stone in life, a lesson or a teacher. And again, this has been extremely powerful in my own life. Usually when I bring this up, I talk about how life happens for us and it's the way that we look at things that makes the difference. I get a lot of people saying, oh, well, it's easy for you to say life has been easy for you. Yeah, I've had my hardships, I had my dad suddenly pass away. He had an aneurysm. And believe me, it wasn't easy to look at that situation and that grieving process and how my life was turned upside down through this lens. But I can tell you right now that if I didn't look at life and that experience through this lens, that it was the right time, it was supposed to happen, that life wasn't throwing something at me that I couldn't handle, that I wasn't strong enough to handle, that it was preparing me and helping me evolve in some way, I don't know where I'd be now. I'd probably still feel like a victim. Yeah, it still sucked losing my dad, and it still sucks experiencing other hardships. It doesn't mean that, again, I just picked myself up and I brushed myself off and I went along through life as if nothing happened. I grieved it and I experienced those emotions and I let them come through me and, in whatever way that looked like. But I also looked out for the lesson. And I think that as long as we are the victims to our circumstances, it's one of the most disempowering things that we can do for ourselves, because it's like our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. Whereas in turning the lens and turning your mindset to something else where It's now, okay, no, this is actually working out for me. This is actually happening for me in some way. I don't know how, but if I keep my mindset open to that, if I keep my mind open to that, then I'm actually able to see the lesson coming my way. I can see the opportunities. But if we have a different set of goggles on, the goggles of, man, this is happening to me, and this sucks, and it's that the victim mentality, and my life is horrible, and it's never going to get any better, and that's what you're going to see in your reality and in your life. You're going to be too busy with those goggles on that you won't be able to see the opportunities because you don't have those goggles on. It is our perception that determines what we see in life. I strongly believe that. And sometimes we just have to take off one set of glasses and put on a different set of glasses to be a little bit more empowered. I know it's not always that easy. It's a practice for sure. And it's easier to start off with the less intense things. You're stuck in traffic. It's easier to look at life through the lens that this is happening for me rather than to me. It's helping me grow in some way when you're stuck in traffic than when you lose your childhood pet, But the more that we can take on this mindset with the smaller things, the more that muscle grows within us, the more that resilience grows, and the more we can transfer it to the harder things in life. When you're going through a breakup, when you're experiencing the loss of a loved one, when you injure yourself, when you're dealing with some sort of sickness. Again, it doesn't mean that it's easy. It just means that you're doing everything you can to uplift yourself, to empower yourself. It's not about life always being easy. I don't think that's the purpose of life. I don't think it's supposed to be easy necessarily. I think it's a training ground for our spirit, our soul, for us spiritually. And we go through these hardships and we go through these trials and tribulations, and it's the way that we respond to them. It's, if we look at them as a stepping stone to grow within ourselves, we rise. We rise and we transcend those parts of ourselves that once kept us stuck. But as long as we see ourselves as the victim to our circumstances, we kind of stay in the same place. We never really rise. We never move on to the next level of consciousness within ourselves. Because ultimately, I believe that's what it is. It's life is helping us evolve consciously. And I believe that because I think in the end, we're just one consciousness experiencing itself in a number of different forms, billions, trillions of different forms. The idea of separateness is an illusion. And if we are in fact just one consciousness, which is God, if you want to call it that, or source, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. It's just a label. Experiencing itself, then we are just learning from ourselves. We're just awakening to ourselves. It's like a waking dream. But in the end, on a little bit more of a superficial level, if you will, psychological level, looking at life through the lens that it's happening for you, it's helping you evolve, it's helping you grow. Like I said, it's been one of the most empowering mindsets I've ever taken on. And it's helped me through loss, through grief, through inconveniences, whatever it is. And it's funny because what I've noticed in taking on this mindset, and I think you will too if you take it on, is you don't worry so much anymore. You don't get as angry. You're able to regulate yourself a little bit more in the heat of the moment when you're triggered or when you're frustrated or sad or whatever. It's not about shutting out the emotions. about not feeling them. It's about understanding what types of beliefs and thoughts are actually causing those to come up within you. And in not identifying with those as much, which is usually, some sort of attachment to something and attaching to something that's going on outside of you, and, it's impermanent, so it leaves. Maybe it's, what you thought was going to happen. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's health, whatever it is. And attaching to it, when it leaves, yeah, you're left with this sense of suffering, and you're left with this this inner turmoil. But when you can move beyond that into that space of, okay, what can I learn from this? You're able to separate yourself from those thoughts and those beliefs, and those emotions don't have as much of a grip over you anymore. That's what I've noticed in my life. So if you're going through something difficult, try to look at it through the lens of, okay, what can I learn from this? How is this helping me right now? How can I take responsibility for this? Not in a blame sense. I mean, if there's something to take accountability for, then absolutely. I think accountability is one of the most powerful things when it comes to growth, improving awareness, whatever that is. But taking responsibility for something just means that you accept the fact that it's in your life, that you're experiencing it, instead of pushing it away, avoiding it, running away from it, being the victim to it. Taking responsibility for it is grabbing the bull by the horns and saying, okay, what can I do with this? If I was dealt a shitty hand, what can I do with this? Rather than, man, I'm just going to throw the cards on the table and say, screw this, I'm not playing. No, you still play the game of life. You play it by understanding that, you play it better, I should say, by understanding that it seems like life gives you shitty hands at times, but it's actually lining things up usually for things to work out in a way that is better than what you imagined. But if you don't look at it that way, that'll never be the case. You'll never see the opportunities. You'll only see how crappy life is. And that will keep you where you are. It'll be like a self-fulfilling prophecy, a cycle, that you feel crappy within yourself, you feel like a victim, therefore you see things outside of you that reaffirm that belief, and then you feel the same way, and then it's a cycle. Whereas if you can feel the emotion but be like, all right, I'm learning from this, what can I learn from this? All of a sudden, insights come to you, lessons come to you, and self-awareness, and you start to see opportunities where you wouldn't have seen any before. And from there, you start to take your life in a different direction. You start to elevate yourself. So again, this has been like I said, one of the most, if not the most empowering mindset I've ever taken on, that life happens for us, not to us. And it's helped me through some of the hardest times of my life. And I hope it does the same for you. So, hope this video helps, and I'll see you in the next one.